Before I share these words, I would like to explain their origins. My name is Andrew Green. I work in a search and rescue organization specializing in caves and cliffs. About a week ago, my team and I went looking for a man named Owen London. But finding his body seemingly bitten in half wasn't the most disturbing find. In his backpack were some notes he'd written. What I read made me rethink my whole job. I'll try to retell his story as accurately as possible, but the notes were handed over to the police, and as far as I know, no one's heard anything from them since, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm the only one who even knows about the contents of the letters. Here's what he had written, but I warn you, the events told in this story are nothing if not terrifying. The saying always goes, a dog is a man's best friend. There's something about a dog's personality that makes it different than any other animal. It's the reason boys who aren't yet men always dream of having a puppy, not yet a dog. But this boy never asked for a puppy. You see, I never liked dogs. Not only did they cause my whole face to burn, thanks allergies, but there was something about the way they looked at me, the way their eyes seemed to almost burn into mine, leaving that faint purple color ingrained into my vision for just a second, the way staring at a light for too long did. I never told anyone, assuming it was either normal, my imagination, or people would think I'm weird. In fact, this was the reason I was out, walking through the forest this late at night. Going for a walk through the hiking trails that led through the woods always calmed me down, though usually I went hiking during the day. What harm can a little bit of darkness do? I brought a flashlight with me so I wouldn't step on any snakes, the only real danger you had to worry about in the woods, unless you include the stories about werewolves or dogmen, as some people called it. Stories that crazy people told their kids to make them stay away from the woods. I shone the flashlight around the trees a few times, the silence making it seem as if the forest had disappeared or something, the only sounds coming from my own footsteps. Not a single insect or frog or owl made any noise. The forest was pitch black. There was a full moon, but with the clouds covering the sky, the only thing you could see was a slight glow from above. The forest was too quiet. I usually heard at least something out there, but this time there was nothing. It's like the world is frozen in time. I stopped in a clearing area, right beside the trail where I used to have picnics here with my dad. I listened to the silence ring in my ears. It was starting to give me a headache. Then, a light brightened the forest, and I looked up as the clouds passed over, momentarily showing the moon. My whole body seemed to cramp up at once as goosebumps rose across my skin, my eyes not moving from the glowing orb in the sky, still half covered by the clouds. But I couldn't see the clouds anymore. I couldn't feel my headache, I couldn't feel my body starting to change. All I saw was the moon, filling my vision with white light so bright it should have hurt my eyes. But then, the clouds moved back in front of the moon, and my arms regained feeling, my eyes fell away from the sky and the headache returned. For just a moment, I thought could see the whole forest, but then the darkness returned, leaving me alone in the silence once more. What was that? I thought to myself, practically stumbling onto the picnic table on the far side of the clearing, sitting down on the wooden bench beside it. I should get back home. I didn't know what it was that just happened, but part of me worried I had just almost passed out. Maybe it's like iron deficiency or something. I wondered, attempting to stand up, my muscles seemed to scream in protest. What's happening right now? I turned my eyes back up at the moon just as the clouds allowed it to be visible, and suddenly I couldn't feel my body anymore. I couldn't feel or hear or think, I could just see the glow of the moon, seeming to burn my soul away. Then, nothing. Like sleeping, only instead of everything being dark and dreamless, everything was bright white light. A million smells seemed to hit me all at once. The alpha is hungry. The words seemed almost non-existent, as if I had thought them myself. Then, as suddenly as it disappeared, the forest returned, and I found myself standing over the body of a dead animal. Blood covered my hands that looked abnormally huge, my arms bigger than trees, my skin, was long and gray, with a small tint of blue. What the was all I could even think before my head tilted upward to see the moon reappear in the sky, and then I was back in the void, empty light once more. The time that passed felt like both a million years and a few seconds, all at the same time. When the forest reappeared, I was walking on all fours carrying a rabbit corpse in my mouth like a dog. My stomach felt as if it tried to eject itself through my esophagus as spit the dead animal out in disgust, the strange taste in my mouth no doubt blood. What on earth? I thought, and then the sky brightened yet again as the clouds moved. I somehow managed to stop myself as I instinctively looked up toward the sky. Don't you see? The moon is causing this. I screamed at myself in my head. I don't know how, but it is. But my head slowly continued turning upward against my command, as if my body weren't fully in my control anymore. You can't deny the beast. Yes, I can. I forced my eyes closed, my heart beating a million times a second at the thought of what might happen if I looked at the moon again. But the light from the moon felt as though it was burning holes right through my eyelids. Even though they were closed, I could still see the light from the moon. It felt both hot and cold all at once. Open your eyes. My body felt as if it were being controlled by someone else, like in my mind there was a war between who sat in the driver's seat. Stop. My eyelids felt freezing cold against my eyes, and I could hear my voice echo through the forest. But despite these attempts at preventing it, my eyelids slowly began to twitch open, and moonlight flooded into the back of my mind, and just like that, I was unable to move again. Please, somebody help me. I pleaded in my head desperately. The light around me slowly began to change, dancing around my body that seemed to appear out of nowhere. And there was a lot of nowhere. The light all moved downward, as it was divided from the darkness, when suddenly, just below me, the moon materialized from the light itself. I'm standing on the moon. Around me, all I could see was shining, light gray, crater-filled moon sand. A desert of silver. And standing in front of me, was the biggest dog I'd ever seen in my life. Its fur looked tangled, and it walked more like an ape than a dog. Its eyes were completely white, almost glowing, and white mist circled it like a tornado. Its feet were like that of a tiger's, each claw looked almost a foot long, and some kind of black oil-like stuff oozed out of the creature's mouth. That's no dog. The demonic monster growled, the sound so loud it sent the ground shaking. I turned around to run as the creature jumped forward, but it caught up to me in seconds. I felt the dog's jaws close around my body as I lifted into the sky. Blood welled out from my side as teeth impaled through my skin, my head slinging around as the dog shook wildly. My nose burned as dog hair flew from the creature, but my burning nose and flaring eyes were the least of my concerns for the moment. The dog released me, and I flew at least 15 feet before hitting the ground, blood shooting out from where the tooth had stabbed into my skin. The creature was back on top of me before I could react, violently shaking me back and forth like a pet playing with a tug-of-war rope. I thought my neck would crack in half just from the speed and power of this creature. I have to do something. I knew I only had a few moments before this demonic dog-like thing took my life. The alpha's hungry. Go on a diet, devil. I screamed, using every last bit of strength left in me to swing my fist. The dog's nose was like a cushion, like punching a bed mattress. The creature's jaw opened wide as it roared, the wind coming from within its lungs sent me flying into the moon sand about 7 feet away. Then, the world turned red. The creature's eyes, the moon, the glow that spiraled around the wolf, it all changed into a dark, blood red. Blood dribbled down the creature's eyes that shone with fury. The last thing I heard was a howl, so loud it sent moon dust exploding through the air like hot embers on a campfire, but on more of a nuclear bomb-like scale. Then, everything was black. This time, the mixture between forever and never was dark and cold, not white. When my eyes opened again, I found myself laying down. Above me, a lunar eclipse made the moon look blood red. What happened? I mumbled, sitting up. It felt like I had just gone 3 days without sleeping and my heart was beating dangerously fast. Was that a dream? Did I pass out? I looked down at my side and lifted up my shirt. On my skin was a bright red-colored mark. It wasn't bleeding, and it didn't look like anything even pierced the skin, but there was definitely something there. I stood up and stumbled toward the trail, which wasn't far away, and once I was there, I ran as fast as I could toward the house. I would later learn that there was no eclipse. I'd grow up with the memory of that night embedded into my head forever. Sometimes I still wonder if it was even real, but even now, every time I see a full moon, I can feel my body start to numb, and I'll have to force myself to look away before the alpha comes back for a rematch. But since you're reading this, it did come back, and now I'm going to die here in this cave. My hatred toward dogs also grew, and the feeling seemed to be mutual. Nearly every dog I'd seen since then attempted to either bite me, growl at me, or give me a cold, hateful stare. The alpha isn't pleased with you, their eyes seem to implant messages into my head. Good, I'm not too fond him either. I never believed in the supernatural or paranormal or anything until that night. I used to read stories of werewolves and vampires, but always thought they were just stories. Fiction. But I was wrong. I don't have much time left, so I'm writing these words as a warning to anyone who might stumble upon them. The alpha found me. When you see the full moon shining into your eyes, remember who's looking back. Think about who dogs and wolves have howled to for thousands of years. And whatever you do, don't anger it. Because the alpha isn't a good dog.